me.
This is not a wise course of action, Kratos. It was a dream, nothing more.
Kratos.
The visions still haunt me, Athena.
My son, it is me.
The visions you promised to take away.
I have waited so long.
But this vision, I can change.
Your brother does not have much time.
Deimos?
Perhaps it is a vision best left unchanged.
He lives, trapped in torment, deep in death's domain. The temple of Ares in Sparta holds the secret that will lead to your brother.
Why would you do this?
Your father forbid me to tell you.
My father? Who is my father?
Finally, I am free.
Mother, what have I done?
The mighty Titans. Defeated by the gods and enchained in the depths of Tartarus, these immortal beings hated the Olympians with immeasurable fury.
Where are your gods now, Kratos?
There is more to this than you know.
Why do they not come to your aid?
Know thyself, and your path shall be revealed.
Please.
Deimos, he needs.
Welcome back to more Let's Play God of War Ghost of Sparta. Last time, Kratos journeyed out to Atlantis to find truth regarding his new visions of lost family, his mother and his brother. We got some answers. Apparently our brother, who we learned about in this game, is actually still alive. Well, technically we learned about him in the original God of War title, God of War 2005. But that was a non-canonical video. So now, technically, for the first time, we're learning that Kratos has a brother. His name is Deimos. He is alive, and we have a chance to actually save him. Unlike our poor mother, who, in fact, died, and has something to do with Kratos' mysterious, unknown father. Ghost of Sparta, similar to the comics that we talked about in the interlude video, explores hidden chapters of Kratos' past that we did not previously know. We, of course, already knew of his infamous servitude to Ares, the murder of his wife and his daughter. The comics got into the birth of Calliope and the adventure Kratos went on to ensure that she could actually live a normal life for as long as she did before Kratos actually killed her himself, unfortunately. And in this game, we learn another secret of Kratos' past, something that he doesn't talk about, but as we'll be finding out in later videos, is a very, very important part of who he is, his missing brother. Now, I'm not going to spoil why his missing brother is such an important part of who he is, or how technically he has been with us this entire time. That's something that we'll get into in a later episode. It's a really, really smart way of incorporating aspects of Kratos' character and character design with, you know, the trope of Kratos had a brother that we didn't know about before the events of this game. It's really well done, and I really like the story for explaining some things about Kratos' character design and who he is as a person in regards to this new information that we get so late in the saga and in the franchise. It's really, really well done. In this episode, we're exploring a volcano. I'm sure that won't lead to anything bad for Atlantis at all. I mean, how could it? We're in the caldera now, and we're introduced to some new enemies. These winged monstrosities are so fucking annoying. Unlike other harpies, or other harplings, which I guess these are, these things immediately shoot out into the sky. And the only way you can deal with them, truly, in the highest difficulties, is parrying them when they come crashing down. I was quiet there for a second. I'm going to also jack the audio up there for a bit, just so you can hear the shriek of the harpy, bird, harpling creature thing as it comes crashing down, because you have to time your parry with the shriek. If you don't do that, that bird is going to come crashing down on your head. It is going to do a lot of goddamn damage, and you are going to die really, really quickly. Those birds are really annoying, and by the end of the episode, you'll see why, because we're going to have one last encounter with those birds combined with other enemies that is really, truly a devastatingly annoying encounter for so early on in the game. But again, Ghost of Sparta doesn't play by the rules of the other God of War titles. You may have noticed this video is much longer than the previous one or any of the other ones in this particular Let's Play series, because Ghost of Sparta's longest section, this is Linnaeus again, who cares about Linnaeus? He's such a nothing side character that we're just going to ignore him completely for the second time now. This game throws its longest section to you. It front loads you with the longest section of the game right at the start. And that's this section that we're in right now. By the way, this is the Titan Thera. We're going to have a quick cutscene with her, and I'll talk more about this after.
It has been long since our kind waited for the one destined to free us. Gaia foretold of our salvation, Ghost of Sparta.
I have not come here for you or your kind.
Do not be so naive, Kratos. Your path led you to me. You need my help.
I need nothing from you, Thera.
If you do not free me, then you will share my fate. You will die here with me. Free me. Free me, and my power will be yours. Without it, we will both remain prisoners of our torments. You will never escape this prison without my help.
Alright, so for Thera, all we have to do is just grab or rotate our analog stick. You can do this for a whole minute and get the trophy that's involved for doing that for a whole minute. I just really quickly went to it because I already got the trophy and I don't really care to have her scream at me for a whole minute. Yeah, so Ghost of Sparta front loads its longest section to you now at the very, very beginning, as opposed to other God of War titles like Ascension with the Statue of Apollo, or Chains of Olympus with the Depths of Tartarus, or original God of War with Pandora's Temple, where you build up to those super long sections. Ghost of Sparta starts off with that super long section. That super long section being Atlantis, exploring Atlantis and its surrounding territories. This is the longest section of the game. After this, we're going to be getting a sort of a quick tour of various other locales and sections that are not going to be nearly as long, similar to other God of War titles, where, in the original God of War we were in Athens, but we weren't in Athens that long. And then we went to Pandora's Temple. We were in Pandora's Temple for a long time. Then we were in Hades, and very briefly in Hades, and very briefly back in Athens. But Pandora's Temple took up the bulk of the game. Ghost of Sparta is like that, except that it starts off with that super long section of Atlantis right now, as opposed to building up to a super long section as in other God of War titles. Anyway, we have Thera's Bane. Thera's Bane is the fire upgrade for our Blades of Athena in this game. It's incredible. This is something you're going to be using all the time in conjunction with your Hyperion stuff, and with the second weapon that we're going to be getting later. Thera's Bane is fantastic, and you're going to be using it all the time, for not just for special armored enemies like this automaton, but you're going to be using it for basically everybody, basically all the enemies, because it's so useful and so fantastic to be able to instill fire cores that blow up after a certain amount of time to do massive damage and area of effect damage as well. So Thera's Bane is a fantastic contribution to Ghost of Sparta on the whole, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of it over the course of the next hour. And again, this is going to be the longest episode of Ghost of Sparta at over an hour. The other episodes are not going to be nearly this long because, again, the other episodes aren't going to cover such massive chunks of game because this is the biggest, most massive chunk of Ghost of Sparta right here at the very beginning, as opposed to other titles where we build up to that kind of stuff. Here we're learning about the Archimedean screw. I'm sure that this isn't something that we're going to... I'm sure this isn't something that completely holds the entire city together, and destroying just a couple of these would completely, ruin everything. I'm sure the city was built, on stronger foundation than that. We're just gonna get a couple of these out of our way just so that we can make our way through more efficiently. I mean, who wouldn't? Here, by the way, I'm just showing that we're back at the caldera entrance where we fought those annoying winged creatures, the harpies, harplings, whatever you want to call them. And here is a new kind of door. It can only be destroyed with Thera's Bane. It's just a door, nothing special about it, aside from the fact that destroying these gives you a ton of red orbs, so always a good idea to destroy them. You have to destroy them. There's no optional fire doors. They're all part of the story path. But it's a nice reward to get all those red orbs. Now we're coming up on a somewhat difficult encounter, because now we're going to start throwing in not just those very, very annoying firebirds, harplings, harpies, whatever you want to call them. Now we also have minotaurs that are going to be thrown into the mix. We're starting off with just one minotaur, and we're showing off just how fantastic Thera's Bane is, even though I messed up with the blocking and almost died. Because, high difficulty playthroughs, enemies just do so much damage to you. Next episode, I'm going to be showing off the main menu of Ghost of Sparta, so you'll see that I'm actually playing this game on the highest difficulty. It's a good experience overall, but enemies do a lot of damage to you, so it really is just can be annoying for some parts. It's a bit like the Callisto boss is one such example of it being extremely annoying to play this game on the higher difficulties, because you don't have to deal with all of that unavoidable damage in lower difficulty playthroughs. But talking about the hero now, we have minotaurs, we have firebirds. Not that many firebirds, so don't worry about them. Here's an example of the minotaur. That was an example of the minotaur charging at us, trying to gore us with his horns. We can actually do a QTE to avoid all damage. If we fail it, then we take some damage. But if we do succeed at it, then we don't actually do any damage to the minotaur for succeeding in that QTE. We just knock him out of the way and stun him for a moment to give us the opportunity to do more damage. Showing off again, Thera's Bane is fantastic, not just for armored enemies, but you want to be using them for regular enemies too. It really whittles down their health a lot faster than just hitting them with the blades, so make sure to always be pressing R1 to activate the Flame of Thera's Bane. That way you can always get in some extra fire damage and instill fire cores. Fire cores are usually instilled at the end of a Blade's combo, or at the end of a Blade's combo that ends with the triangle prompt, because you want to do a heavy attack at the end of your combo to actually instill a fire core into an enemy to have that blow up and then do massive damage to them. Moving on, though, we have a nice little linear platform section here. It's a very, very basic section. We're just going to be standing around in this platform, and some spider enemies are going to be appearing to try and wreck our day. But these spider enemies are so weak that we can just grab them, and they automatically die, and there's nothing to it. So we can also parry back their shots at us, but I wouldn't recommend it just because they're so quick and there's so many of them. Annoying thing about the spider enemies and about some of the enemies in this game is that their Hyperion grapple is not as effective as the Hyperion grapple for other enemies. So for small enemies like the spiders, their Hyperion grapple is Kratos just rushes and throws them, as opposed to knocking them down to the ground to begin beating them up for red orbs and stuff. Because they're so weak, Kratos has no reason to actually throw them to the ground and beat them up. He just tosses them out of the way. You wanted to learn pretty quickly which enemies have the useful Hyperion grapple animations and which ones don't, because it's not always beneficial to Hyperion grapple every enemy. There are many, many types of enemies you want to Hyperion grapple, but then there are a few that you don't, because if you do, you're going to be put in a more vulnerable position than if you didn't do so in the first place. There aren't that many enemies that are like that. Most enemies, it is very beneficial for you to Hyperion grapple them, for the extra red orbs and for the invincibility and for all the stuff we talked about in the first episode. But there are a few exceptions where you don't want to do that. And of course, enemies where you can't do that, like the Minotaurs, the Cyclopses, the Gorgons that we'll meet later. You know, you can't Hyperion grapple them. But then there are examples of a few enemies that you shouldn't Hyperion grapple, and we're going to meet one later on in this very episode. So. Anyway, right now, we're going to open another red orb chest, and we're going to sidle our way through a classic God of War 2018 God of War Ragnarok thing. Look at that. That camera angle is going to be all over the place in a few years once we get to the Norse saga. Anyway, Kratos is going to slowly sidle his way as we make our way into the volcano core. Now, in the volcano core, you're going to want to make sure that that you really want to upgrade your... Oh, shit. The Scylla returns, or the Scylla returns, or whatever you want to call this thing, returns. This is the most disappointing opening act monster in the God of War franchise, and this is the reason why. We had our first fight with it at the beginning. We saw it a couple of times in episode 1 and in the beginning of this episode, and this is our fight with it. This is our second big fight with it where Kratos will kill it. He's going to do it right now in a QT. And that's it. That's it for the Scylla. Let's kill him. Again, we already had our opening hour boss with Callisto, but because we set up the Scylla, or the Skilla, or whatever you want to call it, so I'm not going to call it anything because it's already dead. Because we already had our opening hour monster, they didn't want to throw another one at us, I guess, and just killed it in a cutscene. An interactive cutscene, but in a cutscene, which is disappointing compared to the other opening hour monsters that we have had in the franchise so far, and will continue to have in the franchise following this game, chronologically. So it's disappointing. It's very disappointing that this thing is just dispatched like this, and not in a epic second boss fight. You've gotten 5 Gorgon's Eyes, so of course, as is tradition, except for God of War 2005 where we had to get 6, we get our first health upgrade. There are a total of 15 Gorgon's Eyes, 15 Phoenix Feathers, and 15 Minotaur Horns to collect, so 45 chests minimum that you should be opening up to get the collectibles you need to fully upgrade your Kratos in this adventure. There are a total of 65 chests in this game. A little bit more than in Chains of Olympus, and in Ascension, actually. But still less than the original God of War, because the original God of War didn't fully understand the item chest situation, just put too many of them for a total of 90 freaking 1. At this point, though, even though the Scylla was a disappointing creature to kill mechanically, in terms of gameplay, in terms of story, it's very important, because Kratos killing the Scylla messes up that another one of the Archimedean screws, which leads to this, the volcano kind of going crazy, and the consequences of the volcano going crazy that we'll be dealing with for the next 40 something minutes and after that, because unfortunately there's going to be consequences from this side adventure that's really going to come back to present problems for us in future entries of the God of War franchise and in this very game. So this section, just keep jumping back and forth. Very, very simple. Nothing much to it. Now we have a cutscene.
The battle with Scylla had shaken the very foundation of Poseidon's kingdom. Atlantis was sinking. But that mattered little to the ghost of Sparta.
You know, now that I saw that cutscene, I remember that Atlantis did sink. I was very confident that nothing bad ever happened to Atlantis, but I forgot it did sink. Oh well. I mean, like the narrator said, it doesn't really matter. Kratos doesn't care. We have our own stuff to deal with. We have a brother to find. I mean, technically, the death gate that takes us to... No, we can deal with it. We can deal with it. It's fine. Who cares that Atlantis sunk and the people are gonna have a very, very, very bad few next... Very, very, very bad next few weeks before they all ultimately die. Who cares? It's fine. It's Atlantis. It's not supposed to exist, so... It's good that this happened, I guess. With the destruction of the volcano, though, we have our next big section of the game, which is going to be the island of Crete and the towns and villages that are on this island. This is going to be our most expansive area that we'll be exploring. Again, Ghost of Sparta front loads its longest, most expansive area to you at the very beginning, as opposed to building up to it as is the case in other God of War titles. There is no cold open, no opening act, no vertical slice in Ghost of Sparta. This is the main game that we are in right now, our main adventure already in progress. And in hindsight, on more and more playthroughs, I like it more and more. The first playthrough was pretty jarring, but on more and more playthroughs, I like the structure more. It's really, really good. And hey, these guys. We haven't seen these guys in a hot second since Chains of Olympus, but now they're back. And they are just as annoying as they were in Chains of Olympus. Don't get it twisted. The hoplites, these basic soldier enemies that are going to be our basic soldier enemies now for the game, man, they are just as annoying in this game as they were in Chains of Olympus. They're quick, they do a lot of damage in the highest difficulties, and they have a surprising amount of health. Thankfully, with Thera's Bane and with the Hyperion grapples, it makes it so that we don't have to do what I'm doing right now, which is launching enemies up into the sky and pressing circle. I'm still doing it occasionally, just to show you that it is a viable strategy that you could still keep doing if you want to, but it's not as useful as Thera's Bane. It's not as useful as the Hyperion Charge. It's not as useful as the second weapon that we're going to be getting much later on in the game. Ghost of Sparta is really great for giving you options to deal with enemies in higher difficulties as compared to God of War 2005 or Chains of Olympus. And it's a refreshing change of pace to not have to always be launching enemies up into the sky and mashing circle to kill them. Now I actually had options to either use fire, to either use grapples, or I could launch them. You know, I had 3 options to work with at the beginning, and I'll have more options by the end of the game, which is really, really good. I like having the options to deal with enemies how I want to, as opposed to just having the one way to do it. Ooh, man, that volcano. It looks impressive, and it looked just as impressive on PSP. Again, really, really good looking title on PSP. Got ourselves our first Gorgon's Eye of our second set, and now we have a rope climbing, a rope hanging section. Unlike in God of War 2005, rope hanging and wall climbing sections are not nearly as annoying as they were in that game. Like I said, in the God of War 2005 playthrough, they had already ironed out the kinks of the rope hanging and the wall climbing by God of War 2, and Ghost of Sparta came out way after God of War 2. It came out after God of War 3, so, you know, no chance that we were going to go back to the very annoying system that we had in the original God of War title. You can also Hyperion grapple in the air, as you saw Kratos do just then. Good. It's not something I do that often, but it's a good way to deal with them, to deal with enemies as well. Hoplites still very annoying. They still do plenty of damage to you, so don't worry if you thought the game was going to be too easy by giving you too many options. Ghost of Sparta is a very difficult game. It does not hold back in a lot of ways, so don't worry if things feel too easy for a moment, because Ghost of Sparta is going to find a way to make it difficult for you. Again, I do pretty well for the majority of this playthrough in terms of keeping my deaths low. But there's going to be a fight right at the very end of the game, not the final boss, but one of the final regular fights of the game, where I really drop the ball and I die a lot to it, because, man, I just completely underestimated one particular fight that I did really well in my practice playthroughs, but then, you know, once it's time to actually record, that one particular fight that I didn't expect to really be a big issue compared to another particular fight at the end of the game, became a much, much bigger issue than I could have ever suspected. I got trapped in the rock here, so I had to push it back out a little bit. And then push it back closer so I can get up here to these archers. I do a regular spin attack first, but much better idea to do it with Thera's Bane. Again, using Thera's Bane as often as possible is a good idea, because not only does it inflict that fire core damage if you end a combo with triangle, but it just piles on extra damage to your regular attacks. So it's a good idea to always keep using that, to always be using that every time you attack enemies, no matter what. Moving on, though, we have 2 more item chests here. Item chests are not going to be as hidden in this game as they were in the God of War 2005, or as they will be in other main series titles, because again, in the side games, we're more focused on a compact experience that represents God of War as a whole, as opposed to creating a big, complex, wide linear system like in God of War 2005. So things are going to be more laid out for you. There are quite a few hidden goodies here and there in nooks and crannies, but for the most part, things are going to be very, very linear and straightforward. Here's a cutscene now.
Athena! You lied to me! The gods lied to me! My brother lives. He lives! Athena!
Don't let your rage blind you, Kratos. There is much you do not know. Be warned. They will all try to stop
you. Oof. Kratos is really not messing around, and I mean, why wouldn't he? Before, he thought he had lost everything. He thought his entire family was basically gone. His mother seemingly had disappeared, his brother had been taken, his wife and his child. I mean, we already know what happened to his wife and his child. But now that he knows someone in his family is still alive and can be saved and can be reunited with him, he is not going to take any shit. Not this time. Not for anyone, not even Athena. By the way, we didn't talk about it in the first episode, or just now when I was talking about Kratos being reunited with his brother, potentially. But we have our second relic of the game. There are a total of 6 relics in this game. These are special collectibles that will give Kratos some kind of a benefit in a New Game Plus playthrough. I can't actually use them now because this is not a New Game Plus playthrough. I'm playing this on base New Game, so I can't actually activate any of these relics. You'll see them in the extras video. But so far we have gotten Callisto's armlet, and we have gotten Athena's owl. Again, we'll be seeing what all these relics do in an extras video. But for now, just know that they do exist. Most of them are, you know, in your way, so you're not going to be able to miss them. But there are, I think one that's like actually hidden and out of the way. And you're gonna want to make sure you do the prerequisite necessary to actually collect it, because you actually get something pretty cool for that particular relic. But for now, we have these hounds. And I died to these hounds once. You'll recall that I said earlier that there are some enemies you don't want to Hyperion grapple. These hounds are one of them. They do a lot of damage to you, but just as dangerous as all the damage they can do to you. If you Hyperion grapple them, Kratos is not invincible, and the hounds are not going to hold back from attacking you while you Hyperion grapple them. Do not Hyperion grapple these hounds. You're going to be left vulnerable if you do so, and you're going to take a lot of damage for your trouble. So do not ever grapple these rabid animals. It's not worth it. Meanwhile, if you just press circle at them, you will be invincible for the entire animation of you doing damage to them. So regular grabs only, do not Hyperion grapple them. Hyperion grapple them will lead to you almost dying like I did. And actually dying once, as I did before. Again, there aren't that many enemies where you don't want to Hyperion grapple them, but the dogs are one of them. Not only are you vulnerable, you don't get extra red orbs for doing it, so don't bother with them, with Hyperion grappling them. Just grab them normally. 2 more chests here, one of them having our 5th Phoenix Feather, so we get our first major magic upgrade. Again, magic is not something we're going to be messing with that much in Ghost of Sparta. It's something I use occasionally. You saw me use it in the Hound fight just now because I needed some invincibility frames because I got worried because I took so much damage. I didn't want to die a second time. But it's not really something we're going to be using. It's not something we're going to be liberally applying to our fight. It's just a thing that we're going to use for invincibility frames now and again. At this point, just some simple QTEs here, pushing some stuff, regular God of War fare. Now we're going to come across a little puzzle room here. It's not overly complicated, but it is a nice little puzzle room here with this guy. Smokey over there. Not looking too good, but we're going to get our chest first because that matters more, obviously. We can't actually interact with Smokey, not directly. We can't chat with him, but we do need him. So we're gonna go ahead and get him.
What are you doing?
We need him. We need him freed. We don't need him breathing, unfortunately, for old Smokey. So we're gonna go ahead and drop this big rock on him right now. There we go. Again, we do need him. We need him freed. And that's about all we need from him. Just to be free from the wall there. So we'll go ahead and just grab him. Just put him on this little button here. And we can safely move forward with our journey. Now, despite the fact that the Ghost of Sparta kind of front loads you with the big long section first, I really do like this section. It's a really decent section. It shows off just how good Ready at Dawn got with the graphics and the VFX of a God of War game, because this is far and away way better than anything they did in Chains of Olympus already. This whole section of the island of Crete looks amazing. It looked amazing on PSP. It looks even better on PS3 remastered. It's a great section, and it really makes me wish for a God of War remaster, for a God of War remakes, where Santa Monica would remake all of the previous God of War games and make them look like Ascension and God of War 3. That's the dream. But even if they don't do that, this stuff already looks impressive already. I really love it. Now we have our first encounter with Gorgons. Gorgons are easier in this game than they've ever been, because Gorgons, whatever, can't actually do any damage to you in this game, believe it or not. The only way they can damage you is by freezing you with their stare. If they don't freeze you with their stare, everything else they do, where they grab you or they slither around trying to freeze you with their stare, doesn't actually do any damage to your health bar. So you're good. As long as you don't get frozen by Gorgons, then you can't die to them. And they have a really cool death in it, and they have a really cool QTE kill animation. You get some magic orbs, and you can freeze all the enemies around you. It's pretty cool. Gorgons, also, unlike in the original God of War 2005, they can freeze each other, as you just saw this Gorgon do to the other Gorgon. So it's just they're easier here than they've ever been in any God of War game. They are crazy easy in this game. Even this, they grab me. As long as I do the QTE, then I didn't take any damage. They can't actually do any damage to you unless they freeze you and then, shatter the rock. And as long as you roll, then they can't freeze you, so. Gorgons are free enemies. They're freebies. You don't have to worry about them at all. Ever in this game. Moving on, though, we have another red orb chest. And we've reached a bathhouse, which is nice. I mean, this one in particular doesn't look particularly hygienic, but still, it's the thought that counts, I guess. We have another save point. Didn't mention in the first episode because I was busy talking about all the meta stuff about Ghost of Sparta, but obviously not showing off save points aside from the very first one and the very last one, just to make sure that, you know, things are as smooth as possible in the main playthrough. Yeah, this bathhouse is not hygienic at all. Still, looks fantastic again. Ready at Dawn Studios did a great job visually with this game. This game looks phenomenal. Let's get out of that water. Good. Good getting out of that water. Gotta go ahead and open ourselves another chest. Unlike in the original God of War 2005, Ghost of Sparta follows the Chains of Olympus rules of chests, where chests are not going to be fully refilling all of your health and all of your magic. So they're not as useful as they were in original 2005 Santa Monica God of War, but still, make sure to open them if you need health or magic. It's a cutscene.
Hold fast, Dominus. We've won the battle. Hold fast. What happened here? We have angered them. The gods. They sent a message to all who defy their glory. But we survived. Spared us. She... Who spared you? The daughter. A message to the ghost of Sparta. The labor begins. Death awaits the ghost. He will never get the skull. The skull. I am coming for you, brother.
All right. Our great quest truly begins. We know Deimos is alive, and now we have an idea of what to do to actually get him. We need the skull. Probably in the Temple of Ares in Sparta, as our mother told us. That combined with the fact that there are people who are going to be actively stopping us. We are going to journey where no mortal goes and where gods don't like to go normally. The domain of death. It's a really cool idea for a side adventure to introduce the domain of death and everything that entails from that. For this fight in particular, we're facing many armored hoplites who had shields. Very easy to deal with as long as you parry correctly. Then you can just instill a fire core in them, because parrying and attacking with the Theros Bane automatically instills a fire core into hoplites that you parry back. So if you actually have fire in your fire bar, if you don't, then you're not going to be instilling anything into anyone. But if you do, then you can automatically instill a fire core. That's going to do extra damage, burn them alive, or get them ready for a launching or for high purity grapples. The game's already starting to introduce the armored enemy variants to us, so the game is already stepping it up in terms of difficulty. So don't take it easy. Don't relax. because Ghost of Sparta opens with one of the hardest sections, as opposed to building up to it as in other God of War God of War titles. Before we can move on, because that gate that we saw there is our way out of this area and towards Sparta. Now we have to take a detour into this destroyed island that we caused. We have some eagle enemies to take care of first, before journeying too deeply into the wrecked remains of this island. These eagle enemies, as we'll find out in the next video, are actually creatures of the domain of death. So this is our first encounter truly with aspects of the domain of death, with these winged monsters that only come from that domain. They're easy to deal with in this first encounter, because first of all, there's an invisible wall here where the enemies can't actually cross over. And they can be killed with one grab. They can also be killed really quickly by instilling a fire core and letting them blow up around other enemies to do additional damage. Another great thing about fire cores is that they're basically timed bombs where you can put one into an enemy, then you can let them hang back with the other enemies, and then they all blow up, and it's really good stuff. Now we've made it to Herclean. Herclean? I think it's Herclean. It might be Herclean. The town, the town name here. It's named after Hercules, as we'll find out in one of the lore books that are in the area, and it could be named also after his victory over the Nemean lion. I don't know. We'll see. Well, we won't see actually, because Hercules is not in this game, and we get no mention of him in this title, aside from the fact that the city is named after him. Either way, we're in the city. It's named after Hercules. And now we have our first encounter with a Cyclops Tyrant. And these guys are very annoying. This first particular encounter is annoying only because you fight him in such a small arena. This is something Ghost of Sparta does a lot more than I would like it to, having uncomfortable camera angles and really small arenas to fight in. This, coupled with Ghost of Sparta's different pacing for its fights. I mentioned this very briefly in episode 1, but it's more apparent now in this video how differently paced fights are in Ghost of Sparta as compared to God of War 2005, especially God of War 2005, which is the game I played right before this, which really affected my perceptions of how to play Ghost of Sparta. The slowness of Kratos doing his actions, especially rolling away from enemies, is pretty jarring and leads to a lot of mistimed dodges. And the fact that the arena is so small doesn't really promote a lot of movement or sight in some cases, especially when you're in an uncomfortable camera angle where you can barely see Kratos and you only have the Titan lumbering towards you. In high difficulties, a mistake costs you a lot of health, so you want to absolutely make sure that not only are you doing a lot of damage, but that you have a good sight line to deal with the Cyclops. Because if you can't see what you're doing, then you're going to be more liable to make a mistake. And unfortunately, Ghost of Sparta's arenas lend itself to not all of them, but more than I would like, to have arenas where you can't really see what you're doing. It's not a big problem. It's not something that appears for every single arena and every single fight, but it is something that appears more often than I would like. And that was the first major example of it. Going ahead and upgrading my Blades of Athena one more time to level 3. The reason is for that first move, Spirit of Hercules. That move is extremely important to have in high difficulty playthroughs, because I've just got finished talking about how Ghost of Sparta has, a different pace in terms of fighting and dodging and stuff, and how things are a little bit slower. Some moves are faster than you would expect, and Spirit of Hercules, that triangle combo, is one of them. It is much faster than you would expect it to be, much faster than it is in previous God of War titles. And combining that with Thera's Bane, it does a lot of damage. So you want to make sure in high difficulty playthroughs, the first thing you prioritize doing is getting your Blades of Athena to level 3 as soon as possible, because you absolutely want the triple triangle combo. You want the extra damage that you just get from passively leveling up the blades, and you want to be able to combine that with the Thera's Bane to do as much damage as possible in the early hours of the game, where you're not going to have that much health, you're not going to be super used to what all the enemies do. It's very, very good to upgrade your Blades of Athena to level 3 as soon as possible. That's the first thing you want to do, is get those blades up to level 3. After we get the blades up to level 3, you're going to be noticing that I'm going to be focusing my upgrades now on Thera's Bane, because now we want to make sure that our fire is as useful as it can possibly be. I'm showing off some of the attacks that I have now from upgrading the Blades of Athena. They're not all, equally useful. Again, the triple triangle combo is going to be incredibly useful against certain big enemies later on in the game, but we also got some Hyperion stuff where we can actually shoulder charge people and launch them up into the air. That Hyperion stuff is never as useful as the basic Hyperion grapple. The Hyperion grapple remains one of the most versatile, useful moves in Ghost of Sparta, so even though we have other stuff we can do with the Hyperions, like launching enemies up into the sky, or shoulder charging them, it's never going to be as useful as just grappling them to the ground, beating them up for extra red orbs, and then killing them. Moving on, though, we're going to have another mini set-piece fight. Ghost of Sparta does this a lot in its opening couple of hours here in Atlantis, and in Atlantis' surrounding territories, to try and really hook you into the game, in lieu of not having the traditional, vertical slice opening act. Instead, it dedicates its first 2 hours to really trying to get you into the game with its moody set pieces and impressive visuals and barrage of fights. Sans an impressive opening act boss like the Hydra, or like the Hecatonchires or the Basilisk. For the most part, it works. Again, the more I play Ghost of Sparta, the more I like this structure. Ultimately, I like the structure of the rest of the God of War franchise more, where you have that opening hour where it's basically a vertical slice, and then the real game gets started after that, but nothing wrong with this either. And again, the more I play it, the more I like this structure here. Here I'm just doing lots of parries, showing off the triple triangle combo, how quick it is. Look at how quick the Minotaur is already ready to die here. Thanks to a combination of the parries, the Thera's Bane, and the triple triangle combo that we got from Blades of Athena level 3, and the fact that the damage just, passively increased on our blades with every level up that we give it. Good stuff. Good stuff, and you want to make sure you do it as soon as possible to make this very difficult game, as simple for you as it can possibly be. And it's not going to actually be a simple experience. It's still going to be difficult. Again, I'm going to mess up pretty big later on, but at the very least, it's something more manageable. See? Herculean is named after Hercules, capital of Crete and the main trading city to Atlantis. Good stuff. Moving on, though, we're going to have our next fight. And our next fight is going to be Gorgons and the little harpling monsters that I hate so much that are covered in fire, and screw them. But first we have just a couple of Gorgons. And the Gorgons are very, very easy. Again, now our blades do an impressive, viable amount of damage that really, really help us out. Always wait for the screen before you parry, otherwise that bird is going to come crashing down on your head and it's going to do a lot of damage. You're going to be seeing that in the final fight of this video, where those birds really, really mess me up a lot. Really annoying. Hate fighting them. Ugh, Lord. Stupid birds. You can also dodge them, but if you mess up the dodge, then, oh man, you're in trouble. You're going to take a lot of damage from those things. Thankfully, in this particular encounter, these birds are only backed up by Gorgons, and Gorgons are, as I've already explained, a gimme enemy. where they can't do any damage to you unless they freeze you. So, hooray! That fight is over. Another firewall here. Again, there's no optional firewalls in this game, so it's just a gimmick thing to show off there is Bane some more. The one good thing about them is that they're quick to open, and, well, two good things, they're quick to open, and you get plenty of red orbs for destroying one. Have another beam walking puzzle coming up right now after I destroy that vase, whatever. Unlike in Chains of Olympus, where the beam walking puzzles were, like, you know, a little joke to emphasize that people didn't like them in the previous God of War titles. Now that they're back, and they're actually a little bit more substantial than they were in Chains of Olympus. Ready Dawn committed fully to doing more, you know, God of War like stuff, and that includes the beam walking. They're not that egregious, and, you know, they never get to the level of the Hades stuff in God of War 2005, or even the challenge of Hades stuff in God of War 2005 and Pandora's Temple. But they're here, and they're a little bit more substantial than they were last time. It's not just one straight line. It's, you know, just some turns here. Again, for a PlayStation Portable title, this would be more this would be a bigger thing as opposed to in the remastered PlayStation 3 version, where you play this on a bigger TV. Still, very basic, very quick to get through. Now we have another lovely view of the volcano that we caused to erupt. Oopsie, I guess. We have ourselves another little puzzle room coming up, a very, very simple puzzle room. Not much to this one. I haven't talked about the soundtrack yet, but the Ghost of Sparta soundtrack is fantastic too. I really love the soundtrack for this game. There are some standout pieces. It's a very moody soundtrack. It's less, what's the word for it? It's less in your face, I guess, would be the phrase I want to use. It's less in your face than the heavy, you know, epic orchestral stuff from Ascension, or from Chains of Olympus, or from God of War 2005, or even God of War 2 and 3. Ghost of Sparta is a very, very moody, darker, yeah, a much moodier soundtrack than what you get from other God of War games, which I like. It's a good soundtrack overall. Got no complaints about it. Finishing up this puzzle room here. Knocking that down, creating a hole for us. We're about to get ourselves a lengthy cutscene, so I hope you enjoy it. Kratos is gonna jump on down. Superhero landing, nice. ABE, always be exploring, nothing there. Let's go. Here is a cutscene.
What fools, what fools. And you, the biggest fool of all, Kratos. The ghost of Sparta. The slayer of Ares, and now, the destroyer of Atlantis. You should take heed, Spartan. The destruction of Poseidon's kingdom will not bode well on Olympus.
I care little for the gods.
And yet you walk beside them.
I did not ask for the throne of Ares.
You were given the honor to walk among the gods, and yet you spit on it like it was dirt.
The gods can keep their honor. I wish only to find my brother.
Ah, yes, the other one. Try if you must, but you will not succeed. You will never find him. And in the wake of your destruction, you have sunk the only path to your salvation. This is all that awaits you at the end of your journey.
Not before I find Deimos.
Be wise, my son, and turn back now. Do not seek the domain of death.
Okay, and why is the grave digger just doing digging noises with his mouth. I wonder. That's a weird thing that was in the PSP version and the PS3 Master, where the Gravedigger is just standing there, but you can clearly hear him digging, which is, it's really weird. Whatever. We got the Key of Crete. We can now open these gates, including the one that gets us out of here and towards Sparta. So let's go back to that gate. We need to make our way back. First, we have these boyos. These boyos are skeleton monsters. Actual basic skeleton enemies that have been included in God of War. It's not the only time they've been included in God of War, but it is kind of jarring to get the zombie enemies and the mythical monster enemies, and now we just have regular spooky, scary skeletons with swords and shields. I'm speeding through this fight because I'm not doing it right. The way you want to kill these guys reliably and quickly is by knocking them down to the ground so they become a pile of bones, and then doing a Hyperion grapple to them. Because Hyperion grapple, if you manage to Hyperion grapple them, they die automatically. However, they can see you coming if you do the Hyperion grapple from too far away, and will dissolve into a pile of bones to avoid you actually being able to grapple them. So the key is to knock them down to a pile of bones, stand next to them, and when they reform with their sword and their shield and their whole body, you Hyperion grapple as soon as they finish forming. That way they don't have enough time to dodge or grapple, and they will automatically die. That's something we'll see from them way later on in this Let's Play when I take them on that way. So you'll also see in the next video when I do that again to them in the Challenge of the Gods. For now, though, I think we're about to be introduced to a new type of enemy, the most annoying type of enemy in the game. The Cyclops Tyrants were pretty bad only because of the arenas that we fought them in, but now we're going to fight a truly despicably annoying enemy that I really, really don't like. These are this game's version of the Wraiths, another creature from the domain of death. And these ones are the worst. Hitting them normally is pointless. Don't bother with that. The only true way to deal with them is by parrying them. But every time you parry them, they are going to go into the ground, become invincible, launch themselves up at you, and try to grapple you as they just did. You see how much damage that one grapple did to me? These ladies, these lady monsters are absolutely relentless. They have attacks that they can do from long range, variant that you can block, but they do a lot of damage if they get through. These grabs at you, these attempts to grab at you after being invincible on the ground are very annoying. I'm pretty sure once they're in the ground, the explosion that I instill from the fire core doesn't actually do any damage to them because it takes so long for them to get to the QTE range here. I'm pretty convinced that actually instilling the fire core and letting it blow up when they're in the ground doesn't actually do any damage to them. I'm pretty sure when they're in the ground they're invincible to everything, even the fire core from their own thing. They have attacks where they can put their bony little hands in the ground and unleash these pillars at Kratos' location. They do a lot of damage. You have to block or parry those. Carrying automatically forces them to dive into the ground to do what they're doing here. I died such an incalculable number of times in my first practice playthrough of this. It's insane just how precise and how technical these fights are. They're very, very difficult to get used to because these enemies do a lot of damage to you. Even pressing L1 and R1 as quick as I did, I'm almost dead, and they only grabbed me 2 times. Now at last, this third one is dead. The fact they throw 3 of them at you for the first fight is also ridiculous. And the fact that we're going to be getting into encounters with them towards the end of the game where they throw them in with other monsters is still outrageous. Because even by the end of the game, with all of your power, with all of your upgrades, they are still the most annoying enemy of the game. And they're a big part of the reason why I die so many times at the end of the game in one particular fight that I didn't expect to die so many times in, because I did so decently in the practice playthroughs, but then I completely underestimated them for that final fight in this recording, and they completely wrecked my shit every time I went after them. It's insane. The raids are the most dangerous enemies in Ghost of Sparta. We got just a taste of them in this particular encounter. We're going to be seeing them a few more times, and by the end of the game, you're going to wish they aren't here at all, because they're awful. They are the worst enemy in this game. So few opportunities to attack them. You can only really parry them, and when you do parry them, they launch themselves into an unblockable invincibility, to an unblockable attack that where they're invincible for a long time. God, they're just so annoying. We have a cutscene coming up.
Don't let your guard down, Deimos! A Spartan warrior never lets his back hit the ground. Even in death, a Spartan stands tall for battle. You are a Spartan, are you not?
Yes, Kratos.
They're so annoying. We had a cutscene there, so I got interrupted, but they are the worst. I hate them so much. The stupid raids. Every encounter with them is a low point for this game. It's one of the reasons why I can't make Ghost of Sparta my favorite game in the franchise. The high difficulty playthroughs dealing with raids it is too much. It is way too annoying to deal with them. Thankfully, we do get a weapon later on that's going to help us a great deal with them, but not completely. They're still going to be really, really annoying. Not to the level they were in this first fight or in the second fight we have with them later, but God, they are just awful. They are the worst. I died so many times in my practice playthrough, and you're going to see how many times I died to them at the end in my actual legitimate playthrough. It's insane. Insanity. But moving away from the raids, we got another look at Kratos' brother. Kratos is a guy who has been challenged and has just not had an opportunity to sit down and really just not have to be Kratos for a while. You know, he's always got to be on. He's always got to be this monster. And he had a brother, and his brother was taken away. His mom disappeared. And he dedicates himself to being a warrior, and that leads to Ares and Ulrich, and that leads to Lysandra and Calliope dying, and that leads to Ascension, and then 10 years of working for the gods, and then killing Ares, and now here he is, still not done. Now actually working towards a goal that he thinks could make him happy, could make him complete, could make him whole, could give him a purpose that isn't just anger. I really like the story of Ghost of Sparta a lot. You'll also notice Deimos' big birthmark. It looks very similar to the tattoo that Kratos has. Again, I really, really like the decision for why Kratos has his tattoo in the first place. Really impactful, and really gives purpose to just what was a really cool design thing. Right now we're facing, God, what are these things called? I think they're called Greymons, right? They might be called Greymons. I'm gonna check real quick. Yeah, they're called Geryons. Geryons, call them Greymons. They're called Geryons. They carry a big freaking ball of electricity and death and destruction on their back. They try to zap you with electricity, so don't get too close to them. Try to instill as many fire cores as possible. They occasionally teleport to your location to do a slam attack. They're not that bad. There is an encounter I have with them towards the end of the game where I do die to them a few times because it's another case of a very, very small arena, and God of War's, different combat pacing as compared to previous titles. That leads to some deaths. It's not just that the pacing of the combat's different, it's that the enemies are still pretty fast for the most part. And it's Kratos who's a little bit slower. At least it feels that way. And because of that, and because of the smaller arenas, it makes combat a little bit different, a little bit difficult to get used to at the very beginning. I mean, by the end of the first hour or two, you'll have gotten the hang of it. You'll have a greater understanding of how things feel, and you'll be able to do just fine. Unfortunately, I took a lot more damage from that thing than I wanted to, because I wanted to try to conserve as much health as possible for the final fight of this video, the most annoying fight of this video, the fight where I'm going to die multiple times, because this is the fight with the Firebirds combined with hoplites, armored hoplites. And it is just one of the most annoying encounters in the game, and it's so early on, and I don't like this encounter at all. I don't like anything about it. It's such a small arena, Firebirds, hoplites. Yep, here we go. Very, very annoying. Multiple deaths. Now we're at 7. Not great. Basically, it's a matter of luck if you're actually going to do this fight well or not. It's a matter of luck. It's a matter of the hoplites leaving you alone long enough to focus on parrying the Firebirds as they come crashing down on your head. It's a matter of being able to accurately assess the crazy ongoing spectacle of the birds crashing down on you and the VFX of that, and the hoplites charging at you. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a small arena. Make sure you use the Eye of Atlantis every now and again for invincibility frames if you can't see where enemies are, or if you think you're about to be overwhelmed by many attacks that you won't be able to parry. Use the Eye of Atlantis every now and again for invincibility frames. Use fire cores to destroy the armored shields of the hoplites. Thankfully, there aren't that many birds, so after you deal with the birds, the whole encounter becomes a lot easier, but still very, very annoying. It's a matter of luck if you're going to be able to deal with the birds fast enough to actually get to a point where you're just dealing with hoplites by themselves. If you manage to do that, though, then congratulations. You've beaten one of the hardest fights in Ghost of Sparta. It's a short, brutal fight, but God, it's difficult. I don't like that fight at all. Small arena, Firebirds, hoplites, bad combination. Bad combination. Thankfully, it's over. Now we've opened this final gate. We can go ahead and move on towards Sparta. I'll see you all next time. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.